Hey there, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Still Positive. My name is Dayna Marie, and I am your host, as always. I'm so happy that you're here. Today I'm talking to Chiara, and she is living with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. And being in the cancer world, I thought that I had a pretty solid grasp on cancer. But the more and more I do these episodes and the more and more I talk to people with different kinds of cancer, I realize how completely different they are in their diagnosis, in their treatments, in people's lives, just in general, the symptoms, the side effects, all of these things. And Chiara was able to really dive into what it's like living with that for herself and just listening to how she is perceiving her own life now that she has metastatic breast cancer, what that means for her planning, what that means for her day-to-day with working and trying to balance a life with cancer. I think this is a great episode, and we touch on a lot of things, including chemically induced menopause and traveling with that, and just seeing that path that you're going down and wanting to enhance each moment. I think that Chiara really did a great job at doing that, in finding her passions, in writing, in connecting with other people. So please listen in. Let me know what you think, and enjoy listening to Chiara living with metastatic breast cancer.
Let's be real. People love to gloss over chronic conditions or disabilities with a fleeting comment like, just be positive, or a fleeting insult like, kale will cure you, as if your life was that easy of a fix. This is a podcast for when you face a different reality, knowing that positivity isn't a magic wand that's going to cure everything, but a flashlight in the dark that we may or may not have batteries to. Living with a chronic illness or disability makes you feel different, and your difference could be noticeable to others or not, but either can sometimes make you feel invisible. I'm here to tell you that your experience is valid and shared by others in the dark. Positivity is not the missing puzzle piece that's going to solve your life's puzzle, but it can be a beautiful tool that can help you grow, and sharing those experiences can make us grow together.
Thank you so much for being patient with me. I seriously, it was one of the hardest things to tell you that I couldn't jump on the call the last time we were planning to talk, because I always want to do everything that I can. And especially when it's something fun and enjoyable that I want to talk to you or connect. But throughout the years, I've just learned that even something like talking on a phone or like a conversation can drain you and your energy.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a really hard thing for me to learn. And I thought that, I could push through and blah, blah, blah. But then the repercussions of that can be even more.
I totally learned that this year going through like this cancer experience as well. And I mean, I have to say, your email was like the perfect thing, because I was about to go no worries and I was like, wait, she didn't apologize. She's so good at this. Like, I am the worst about I'm Canadian, right? So I apologize for everything, but like, it's not my fault if my cancer makes me too tired, and I shouldn't be apologizing for it. So I just have to say, like, I really appreciated that email, but no, I learned the exact same thing. I mean, I was like, oh, I can just power through all of this. I was like training for a Spartan race, working out 6 times a day, and like it ended up like 6 times a week. Sorry, not a day.
Oh gosh, yeah, I was like, that's insane.
It's like even Olympians don't do that. I was like, my palliative care doctor was like, I think you've got like overtraining syndrome. Like, you've got to stop. I was like so tired. I couldn't think about anything but how tired I am. And it's not like that was all I was doing. Like, I work 40 hours a week. I do like so many other things that yeah. So anyways, long story, but I have learned the same thing that you have recently.
Yeah. And it takes and like, it's always a learning process, because especially if you're like, oh, whatever, I'll just do it this time. And like, we'll see how it happens. You always want to try to push it, because the things that you're trying to do are obviously, you plan them, they're part of your life.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, It's understanding your body, but also understanding that like you have no control at the end of the day. And I think that that's what cancer has learned. I've learned with cancer a lot. It's like you have no control.
And that's so hard. I'm like so type A. I want to control everything. Like I
Mhm.
plan the vacations, I plan the thing, like I do everything. And so like yeah, it's so hard to like give up that control, but I think that's just kind of eh, what comes with the territory of cancer, honestly.
Yeah, it's part of our struggle, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me, when were you diagnosed with breast cancer and what kind of breast cancer do you have?
So I was diagnosed in September of 2020. I have stage 4 metastatic breast cancer, hormone receptor positive, HER2 negative, and yeah, IDC, invasive ductal carcinoma. So it's the milk duct was what was cancerous, and yeah.
Wow. And how did you find it originally? Were you like doing a breast exam?
So it was kind of a crazy way that I ended up finding it. A year before my diagnosis, I was just like laying in bed and like happened to like touch a lump there. And I was like, okay, it's almost time for my yearly physical. Like, I'll just have my primary care look at it. And she looked at it and she was like, like, I don't think it's anything. You don't have a family history. You're so young. Like, you're probably fine. But like, let's send it to radiology just in case. And I went to radiology, and the radiologist was like, this is only a 3 millimeter cyst. I don't know how you can even feel it. I don't even really know why you're here.
Oh
It's
my
no
God.
big deal. And he was like, but if it starts to hurt, come back and we'll drain it. And so it like continues to grow. Like I was going to Thailand in February of 2020. And as I was like trying on swimsuits, I was like, this lump is like poking out of my swimsuits, this
Gosh.
cyst,
Yeah.
right? Like you could, it wasn't like visible to a stranger, but like my friend could tell because she knew.
Mhm.
Um, and so I went, then COVID hit like right after I got back from Thailand. And so once COVID kind of slowed down at the very end of August of 2020, I went back for my yearly physical and I was like, this has grown a lot. Like it's hurting. What do you think we should do? She was like, oh, we'll just like send you to radiology to have it drained. And I go to radiology, and it was a different radiologist this time. And he came in and he was like, this is not a cyst, and I'm genuinely concerned you have breast cancer. And
Oh my
like,
God.
it was so insane. Like, I expected to walk out that day with a drained cyst, and instead I was there for like 3 hours. They skipped their lunches to do my biopsy, like on the spot. I had ultrasound, mammogram, everything. And like, once he saw the ultrasound and was like, I think it's breast cancer. And then once they did the mammogram, there was calcifications. And he was like, okay, now I'm like certain that it is, because that
Oh my
like a
God.
fibroadenoma wouldn't look like that. So I walked out of there with like a likely cancer diagnosis that was confirmed like a few days later, with the biopsy results. And then, but even then, everyone was like, "Oh, we've caught it early. You're gonna be fine." I was like going through like treatment, like planning for early stage treatment, and my CT scan got delayed because there was like a machine out or something, and so everything was backed up and COVID and this and that. And so I finally get my CT scan like 3 weeks later. It's like the day before I'm supposed to get my port put in, and the CT came back with like cancer in just about every bone, and it was like, okay,
Oh my
cancel the
God.
port placement, cancel everything. It's like a totally different conversation once you're stage 4.
Whoa. So then where did you go from there? Like, so you don't have to get a port, and then did you go through treatments immediately?
So we had to do a bunch more tests. The MRI found like it was my right breast that I got diagnosed with. The MRI found one in my left breast, so they wanted to test that, and then we had to biopsy the spine to make sure that it was still estrogen and progesterone positive. Well, like the bone tumors, because if they weren't, then the treatment they were planning for me wouldn't work. So about a month after that, I finally started treatment. Um, which right, I'm still on my first line of treatment. I got put into medically induced menopause. So I have a shot that shuts down my ovaries. I am on Arimidex, which is like a another form of hormone blocker that, aside like blocks the uptake of estrogen and progesterone that's produced anywhere outside of the ovaries. And then I'm on a CDK4/6 inhibitor, which is similar to a chemo, but a lot more targeted. And it gives similar side effects, though much less intense. So, like, you can see I still have hair, but I've lost like half to three quarters of what it was pre-treatment. I'm just very lucky to have very, very thick hair.
Yeah.
And, I get like blurry vision and a lot of like chemo-esque side effects as well. But so far it's working. I've been stable for a year, and then kind of the way my treatment goes is like every 3 months I get a scan, and we know that eventually the cancer will outsmart this treatment, and then I'll have to move on to the next one. Each next one is usually a little bit harsher. So we know that my treatment tends to be successful for about 2 years. And then the cancer tends to outsmart it after the 2 years, and then I'll go on to something slightly harsher. But I think there's 2 to 3 more oral options before I have to start getting IV chemo. So
Okay.
that's really handy.
Yeah. And I mean, like, thankfully that there's options that they're telling you about. It's amazing the timelines that they're giving you. I just feel like I haven't heard in my specific, I don't know if because I'm on a clinical trial and it's sort of new, they're just sort of like, we'll see what happens. But I haven't heard like this one usually wears its like course within 2 years. And then we tried this one. So I think that that's interesting, and that they know that, and that at least you can have that sight line of planning. Because I mean, for me, I haven't had a timeline or anything like that, so I just keep doing things if I feel okay, and then if I don't do things, and it's just sort of like this weird in between that I feel like you're probably in too. Like, do I plan things, do I not? Like, how do I continue in my life and planning goals and setting goals for myself when, like, I don't even know what the hell is going on like half the time?
Yeah, that's like the hardest part. I mean, the 2 years is like so handy because I'm like, I'm going to squish everything that I want to do into these 2 years, as much as I'm like physically able to. But it's such a hard thing because, in general, metastatic breast cancer has about an average life expectancy of 3 to 5 years. However, because I am bone only and hormone receptor positive, they think for me that could be 10 to 15 years. But how do you plan when you know that it's gonna get worse,
Mhm.
but you're feeling okay now,
Yeah.
but you're not like as normal as you used to be? It's like such a weird, like, I don't even know how to go about it, honestly. I just kind of like try and do what I feel like doing at the moment.
Exactly, yeah, it forces you definitely to live in the present,
Mhm.
fortunately and unfortunately, because it's so hard to, like, just focus on, like, just this week or, like, 2
Oh, yeah.
weeks, and even then, like, I'll have things planned that I have to cancel, and, like, just getting used to adapting really quickly, I feel like, is part of it too.
Yeah, yeah, so hard. I mean, I had to drop out of a Spartan race I was training for, and even that, it was like all my friends were like, "Maybe you'll do it next year," and, like, I love their optimism, but at the same time, like, I know that by next year, I'll probably be on a harsher treatment, and, like, even if I'm not, all of this is cumulative, so, like, will I still be feeling well? Probably not. Like,
Yeah,
it's just yeah.
and it's hard to plan for that, you know?
Mhm.
But so metastatic is, so you were diagnosed as stage 4, and
Mhm.
then did they tell you after that that it was metastatic? So it was just
With
immediately.
breast cancer, stage 4 is metastatic.
Oh, okay. Because
Yeah.
that means that it's in more than a few
Yeah,
places.
it's, like, left the breast and the, lymph nodes that are, like, close to the breast.
Okay, and it's spread out. And it
Yeah.
can be in the bone, the lung, the brain, and somewhere else. The
Liver.
liver.
Those
Liver.
are the most common places, but it really does go, like, anywhere. I've met people who have it in, like, kidneys and, those are just the most likely places with breast cancer.
Wow. And so how does it feel, like, getting, first of all, the diagnosis at a young age, 27 you were, right?
Yeah.
Getting diagnosed at a young age, and then also finding out this timeline that you have now.
It was so hard. And like I mean, I don't have a family history of breast cancer. Like I'm the first person that like there were people after that I was like, "Oh, I didn't know they had breast cancer," but like I never talked to them about it. So I didn't really even know what stage 4 meant, and I remember my oncologist calling me and being like, "Yeah, it's stage 4. This is not the news I wanted to give you."
Oh my
And I
gosh.
was like, "That's fine because when you catch it early, you can treat it. Like it's curable." And like I didn't make the connection that stage 4 was no longer catching it early. So it like took a while to even process like what the diagnosis was. But
Mhm.
yeah, after that, I mean, it was really, really hard. I think I was just like really in a dark space for a while because I was like, how do I do anything?
Mhm.
Um and then I don't know, eventually I think it was when I heard have you heard Nightbird on America's Got Talent?
Oh,
Um
yeah.
I adore her, but when she was saying like on the show, you can't wait until life isn't hard anymore to decide to be happy. I was like, yeah, why am I making myself miserable just like upset about what's to come rather than like living right now? And so since then I've been trying to like just think about what's really important to me and prioritizing that. So like spending as much time as I can with my like friends and family and traveling and trying to advance my career as much as I can, though that's like tricky sometimes. But yeah, just doing as much as I'm able to.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that she, like, put you in that headspace too, like, by watching that.
Yeah, she's my favorite. I love her.
Yeah, I know, she's just like I was just bawling watching that video,
Oh,
when I first saw it, I was like, "Oh my god, this is so beautiful."
I know.
Yeah, seriously, and I can't I can't imagine that you could just go from finding out to feeling fine, I feel like everyone has to have these stages of mourning, but do
Oh
you
yeah.
find that there was a bitterness that you had in, like, the finding out of it and, like, having a doctor not take it a little serious and, sort of brushing it off?
There was definitely like I still have some anger towards that radiologist, I'll be honest, because
Yeah.
it would be one thing because there was a cyst as well higher up than where I felt the lump, but I think he just saw that and was like, okay, it's a cyst, bye. And so it would be one thing if he were like, I think it's a cyst, but like keep an eye on it. If these things happen, it's probably not a cyst, so come back, like that would be fine. Like I understand saying, cysts are a lot more common my age, but it was the fact that he was like so rude about it and like brushed me off, and that like I still have a little bit of resentment towards him, and like I don't really know where to channel that, cuz yeah, it's tough. My mom works at the same medical group, so I don't want to like ruffle any feathers there, but at the same time I don't want anyone else to have to go through what I did. And
Right.
yeah, it's like a really tough thing. That radiologist had to call me with some results, and I don't know if he remembers that he brushed me off or that he just is like this with everyone. But when he called with those results, like after I got diagnosed, it was like my left breast biopsy, so the second one, he was like, yeah, it's cancer. And I was like, okay, is it IDC, lobular? Oh, your surgeon will tell you more. And like every question, it was like, just talk to your surgeon. I was like, then why did you call me? Like,
Right.
I don't.
How could you call someone and not expect for there to be questions with something like that?
Right, and especially, like, I already have a cancer diagnosis, so I know that it's cancer.
Right.
Like, we were biopsying it to make sure that it was still, like, hormone receptor positive, that, like, everything was still the same because that could change my treatment, and I have a right to those answers, especially because at the time, pathology reports weren't scanned into my online thing, so I couldn't just be like, "Alright, I'll hang up and, like, look at the test result myself." Like, I didn't have access. So,
Mhm.
it was yeah. Luckily, my surgeon called later that day, but I I definitely have some bitterness towards that man.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, and I think that there's definitely at least 1 or 2 people in everyone's cancer journey that you're just, like, sticking it to. Mine
Oh,
were a
yeah.
few nurses and definitely the first doctor that I went to that I never went to after who was, like, brushing it off, and I was like, "You know what? I don't know what this is," because it's like, it's a job like everything else, but at the same time, these are people's lives, and it's, like, really
Mhm.
important that we're giving good bedside manner, all of this stuff, so It's
Well, and
it's
especially somewhere
challenging.
like the US where, like, we're paying for this. Like, this is
Mhm.
not, it costs us so much to even go to the doctor to get checked out to be, like, brushed off. Like,
Mhm.
I paid for that for him to tell me my cancer was a cyst. I think I paid, like, $800 because I hadn't hit my deductible yet. I
Right.
paid $800 to be misdiagnosed. Like,
Uh,
it's yeah,
yes, and so many people have to go through that on, like,
no.
on such a large scale. I mean, like, and even with other chronic illnesses and things like that, that aren't so well diagnosed. I mean, it's more frightening that something like breast cancer and like a cyst like could be so like passed by because of how prevalent breast cancer is. But
Mhm.
especially for other chronic illnesses like that aren't well documented or aren't well talked about, that people are just getting brushed over and like made to think that like they're going insane or something because they're saying they're
Right.
feeling this. No one's listening. It's yeah, it's a bad cycle.
Medical gaslighting is such a thing, and I mean, I feel like I've been very lucky to have, for the most part, excellent care. And I've had a handful of doctors brush me off for like other things and never went back. But for the most part, I've had like very caring doctors.
Once you find the right doctor, it is all the difference.
Oh yeah.
So you
Mhm.
feel okay on the day to day now for the most part.
For the most part, yeah, I'm definitely, like, very immune compromised. I've had a couple of bad infections, like, one came from a mosquito bite and one came from poison oak, like, just,
Yeah.
like, these tiny
Random.
little
Yeah.
things, like, everyone can handle it, but, like, my body can't anymore, so, like, I have to be really careful, and that's been a tough adjustment,
Mhm.
and I definitely have, like, more fatigue, and I can feel it, like, my treatment, I take pills, like, every day, 3 weeks on, 1 week off. And like I'm in week 3 right now. I feel like I'm in week 3, I'm like a lot more tired when I'm working out. I can only do about like half of the energy that I would put in for another workout when it wasn't the end of the cycle. So I kind of try and plan things around that. But
Mhm.
for the most part I feel okay. I'm still working a full-time job. I'm volunteering, working out, traveling, seeing friends. So I'm able to like live my life. It's just a bit of like prioritization of like what's really important because I can't do all the things I used to be able to.
Well, yeah, and that's a great step. That's a great growth step for sure. And I don't know, when did you, cuz did you take some time in between finding out and then continuing to work, or were you working the whole time? Like how did that
I
go?
think I have only taken 2 days off for cancer.
Oh my gosh.
Um yeah.
Look at you.
I really like what I do, and I also, like, needed that distraction.
Mhm.
And I'm really lucky to have a very understanding employer that's like, "You need to go to the doctor for an hour or 2. Go, don't log it. It's not PTO, it's not sick time, like, just do what you need to do," and they're, like, super understanding, and, if I'm too tired or I'm working slowly, they'll help me kind of adjust deadlines and things like that. So I am very, very lucky for where I work. But yeah, I've hardly taken any time off for cancer related things.
Wow. Well, that's great. What do you do for work?
I am a marketing operations manager at a cybersecurity company.
Cool.
Yeah, it's
That's
fun.
fun. And you've been
Yeah.
there for a while, and that's why they were like,
Yes.
"We love you. Do whatever.
Yeah.
We're gonna support you."
I started in 2019, I believe, January 2019. I hit my
Okay.
3 years in this coming January. So yeah, 2019.
Cool.
Um,
Oh, that's
yeah.
great. And I think that I've heard that before too. People feeling like work is a good distraction for them and like maintains a somewhat quote unquote normal life for them, and that makes them, sort of stay on track with that. So I think that that's also a great plan for some people.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not for everyone. I'm lucky, like, my job was remote before COVID, so I'm really lucky that if I'm like neutropenic, I can still work. Like, I don't have to, beg someone to let me work from home or whatever. Like, I work here full time, so
Oh, great.
that's. I think it would be harder if I was expected to go into an office.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And explain to people why you're going to the bathroom like every 5 minutes. That's
Yes,
me.
yeah.
Like, don't look at me. Don't judge me. I'm getting work done, I swear. Oh, man. I read in one of your posts about going to support groups and how stage 4 kind of feel people that have stage 4 cancer kind of can feel alienated in those situations. Have you been to a support group at all, or was this just like your feeling that that would happen?
I Yes. So I've been to a couple of ones that were specific for stage 4 and those were fantastic. But I went to one that was for all stages and I am still like friends with several of the girls, but there were a few in there who like we went around and did introductions and I like introduced myself, kind of shared my story, and immediately everyone went like, well, how'd you find it? How did you know it was stage 4? They were like trying to find something that I did wrong to like
Mm,
separate themselves from me. And so
mm,
instead of getting support, I felt like I was almost being like blamed for my cancer. And I'm sure that they don't mean it, but
mm.
it's so like there's such a disconnect, especially in the breast cancer world, I find. But I'm not as deep into the other world. So it's possible that it's like this for all cancers. But it's so like early stages, so like rah rah rah, you'll beat this, there's the finish line. And of course there are struggles once you're done with active treatment, and I'm not trying to downplay that, but I don't think they truly, a lot of them understand what stage 4 really means. And they don't like the statistics, many women don't know that 30% of women who finish treatment for early stage breast cancer will later in life develop metastatic breast cancer, like stage 4 breast cancer. So it's not like they're done and out of the woods, but there's still just this huge disconnect. And I like one of my friends, she was early stage, but her friend who's stage 4 was told like maybe don't show up to these support groups anymore because your story is
Wow.
just too dark.
Oh my
um
gosh. How could you say that to someone that's going
I
to a
know, and
support
like you don't
group?
want to like scare the early stagers. And I have like my breast cancer friend tried to volunteer with the local breast cancer organization, and they were like, "Well, we'll only take volunteers who've been done with active treatment for 6 months." It's like, so you won't let stage 4 people, like stage 4 people, will never be done with active treatment for 6 months. We're on treatment the
Right.
rest of our lives.
Right.
So like, what, you'll only take people who are on hospice, but hospice is only 6 months. So
Right.
um,
Right.
yeah, it's you know,
That's crazy. I can't believe that. I understand that, yeah, it's sad, but cancer is sad in general. Everyone's
yeah,
sad. Like,
yeah.
what? How can you discredit someone's experience because it's more severe?
I
That's
know, and
crazy.
it's like we're like early stagers' worst fears, but like that's why it's so hard. Like I'm always hashtagging like stage 4 needs more, because when like breast cancer gets so much funding, I think it's like the most funded of all cancers, but only 3 to 5% of that goes to stage 4, and stage 4 is the only kind that can kill you.
Yeah.
You will not die from cancer that stays in the breast. And so, like, if early stagers kind of understood this and we could work together to find a cure, to be funding treatments for stage 4, it helps all of us. Because if it can't kill you when it stays in your breast, and we know how to cure it when it leaves your breast, then it helps all of us. But it's just a really weird disconnect, and I don't really know how to bridge it. I've just kind of thrown myself into more of the stage 4 world rather than spending time with more of those early stagers.
That's it's crazy because you're like a recent diagnosis, but also like a metastatic. So you're like, I'm here for the long run. Like I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think once I kind of like turned it, like the whole Nightbird thing happened, and I kind of turned around my mindset, I was immediately kind of like, okay, I need to find more people like me. And I had already had my cancer profile, but I was kind of looking at others and trying to meet people, and
Yes.
that started getting involved more. And yeah.
I saw that you recently did um a cover for Wildfire magazine. That was so cool.
Oh my gosh, it was so cool. I actually wrote a piece in that magazine as well, that I was pretty proud of. But I adore Wildfire. If there's any breast cancer patients listening, of any stage, definitely check them out. I think they're incredible. April, the editor, is wonderful. But yeah, so I wrote a piece in there, and then April was asking if anyone had any photos they'd like to submit for the cover. And I was kind of looking through my photos, and I was like, this photo in front of like a carousel is like so perfect and emblematic of like the NBC experience. I feel like that I was like, I don't know if you like this, but like I'm going to submit it. And it ended up on the cover, which was super cool. And my parents are very proud sending it to like everyone they know.
Oh, I love
But
that.
yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, Wildfire looks like a great resource. I'm definitely buying the NBC Stage 4 and Survivorship there. That whole magazine looks so professionally done, and it's
Mhm.
just like the feelings and writings that are in there. There's poems, there's different articles that all were given by breast cancer patients, and it's really beautiful. I'm so glad that I was turned on to it by you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, every October the issue is like NBC specific, which I really appreciate, and a portion of subscription. I'm a subscriber, and a portion of subscriptions go to like NBC research, and so really clued in on stage 4 as well. And like I just feel so seen in a way that I don't reading other things. You know, I'll read a Wildfire and like 75% of the articles, and like I could have written that. Like I'm not as good of a writer as them, but I could have written like that came from my head, you know?
Yeah, like I'm on the same wavelength as you.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's great. And how do you find that, like, so are you actively seeking like writing as your, because you're marketing and because you're also working with Be Present, and so you're into writing, you are a fan of
It's
writing.
funny, as a kid, I always like everyone wanted to be like a firefighter, an actress. I wanted to be a writer. And like I work in marketing, but I do kind of the more nerdy side of marketing. Like I do more analytics and dashboards and automation and stuff like that. So I'm not really writing. But
Hmm.
as soon as I got diagnosed, I kind of was like drawn more into it. So I'm actually doing a writing workshop right now with Wildfire that's been like just so incredible. I'm definitely signing up for more, and yeah, written a few different things that I hope to be added into Wildfire, and just like writing captions and helping write stuff for Be Present. It's been like a really nice just like release, because I have one really close cancer friend that I can tell her whatever and she's so supportive, but I don't want to be dumping on her all the time, you know? And so like sometimes I can just write it and get it out of my system, and I don't have to be like dumping on someone else. Sometimes I need to like talk things through, but it's just been like a really wonderful like release for me.
Yes, I love that. And if everyone has their own release, and I think that finding what works best for you is so important and
Mhm.
very it's very freeing to find that.
Oh yeah. I mean, writing's not for everyone, but like I work with the Stanford AYA cancer group, and one of the girls there got really into art as like an escape and like to process things when she was going through treatment. You know, everyone's kind of got their something, and it's yeah, I think it's really wonderful to have like something to kind of distract yourself and throw yourself into and help process your feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. And just also document how you're feeling. I think that
Oh
that's
yeah.
important. I my first couple of years, I'm like looking back and I was like blank. Like for a few years, I was like, there is nothing here. Like I was just all in my head, like processing. And then like in the probably like 3 years after first getting diagnosed, then you'll see like I have some stuff. But for a while, I was just like silent. Like,
Yeah. I'm not a big journaler and I'm trying to get better, but like at the beginning, I feel like I was just trying to survive. There was not a whole lot going on that I could like write about. It was just like too much. But now
yeah,
that I've finally got my feet under me.
yeah. Oh, good. That's great. And it's great to hear that that was a process for you too.
Mhm.
I saw that you also did a article with Jessica Zucker in
I
Condé Nast
did.
Traveler. I loved
Yeah.
that article.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that I mean, she's a fantastic writer. I contributed to another one of hers as well in InStyle about like sex and dating after breast cancer. It's a little more intimate, so I didn't like share that one publicly, but it was, I think, a really important article. Um, and yeah, she just talks about things that are like so important and are not talked about enough, that like I love contributing to articles for her.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the topic of this was menopause and traveling when you're having menopause. And I too had chemical menopause that I went into in my early 20s. And not even my doctors helped me understand what was going on. Like they just said, they didn't even really say it was going to happen. They were just like, we're going to take out your ovaries and then we'll see what happens. And then, like, that was it.
Yeah, and I feel like everyone kind of like they were preparing me for the chemo like side effects of my CDK4/6 inhibitor. Nobody was trying to prepare me for the menopause side effects, which a lot of which have been harder to
Mm-hmm.
deal with than like some of the chemo like side effects, like the joint pain. I have never felt something like this. It's just like you wouldn't think about that for like the menopause side. Like people think that's like the easy part. It's not, for me at least. It's not the
No.
easy part.
No, it's so alien. And like, I didn't even know that I was in it because I was in a stem cell transplant at the time. So like, I already was so fucked, like from all of the like side effects and everything. I was
Yeah.
sweating, I had fevers, whatever. I don't know if it was hot flashes or the fevers, but I ended up in the end not having a period. So I assumed some of it was menopause. But
Mhm.
the after effects and like, like, the foreignness of my body after, like, I was so confused because I didn't feel like myself because of the chemo and also because I had no estrogen. So, like, I felt very unfeminine. I wasn't sexually attracted to anything. And, like, my whole, like, persona felt like it was gone. And I was like, am I ever going to feel, like, excited again? Like, I just feel, like, so blah. And, like, I thought it was just me. And then I started looking into, like, what menopause can bring other than just hot flashes. And there was a slew of things that, like, no one tells you about. And, like, definitely not in your 20s. They don't tell you that.
Yeah,
Did you have anyone that was, explaining any of this to you?
not really, because they were just, and it's funny, like my mom, obviously she's in menopause already, but she's going on, she had breast cancer this past year. She was diagnosed a year after me.
Oh my gosh, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry.
And so she's going on the same like hormone blocker that I'm on, like the one that prevents uptake aside from like the ovarian suppression. Um, and they were like, she was like, yeah, they told me I might lose weight or gain weight. I might have like dry mouth, all these things. And I was like, they never told me any of this stuff because they were just focused on the chemo. And we have the same oncologist. So like this was just, they were focused on the CDK4/6 inhibitor and like didn't want to talk about the menopause side of it, which like I got used to it. I'm like fine. I'm going to Hawaii in a couple weeks and I'm a little nervous about just like the wet heat and like how the hot flashes and stuff like that are going to do in that, but
Mhm. Yeah,
that's take it as it comes.
right.
But yeah, I was never told about any of it and it's a little upsetting cuz yeah.
Right. And I also, since then going to a gynecologist again, forget about it. Like,
Yeah.
forget about them. I have like questions. I'm like, so what does this mean? Like, am I going to have to do XYZ and nothing? They're like, we'll see. Like, they just don't. And like, I don't blame them. I'm not going to a specialist. Like, I'm going to like a regular gynecologist, but still, like,
Mhm.
would you refer me to someone? Like, could you like just say like, here's some articles or like something,
Yeah.
And there's nothing like that. So it's left
Yeah.
up to like my own devices. So
I know, it's so hard. I feel so grateful for my palliative care doctor, not that he's like focusing on menopause specifically, but like any sort of side effects, like we can talk through and he's got like something for them most of the time. Sometimes it's like, it's just going to do this and we have to get used to it. But
what
yeah,
kind
I
of
mean,
doctor is he?
palliative care.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Duly noted.
Yes. Highly recommend.
And they just look into like the side effects and what they're going to do
Yeah,
for
it's
you?
all about kind of keeping you comfortable. So, like, I remember I was telling him, like, I'm just so tired. And he was like, well, I think it's overtraining, but if you stop training and you're still feeling this fatigue, we can talk about like Ritalin or something like that. You know, how's your sleep doing? How are you feeling? All of these things. And they've got like a chaplain on staff. And
Wow.
um, it's so helpful. I haven't used the chaplain services, but like everything else has been like so helpful for managing like side effects and things like that.
And did you have to seek him out, or was it in your care treatment?
Well, my oncologist, like she was like, you don't have to, but like once anyone's diagnosed stage 4, I always offer palliative care and I'm happy to refer you. And palliative care is in the same building as my oncology, so it's easy to like just see him right after I see my oncologist. But I think I probably would have sought it out anyways because my palliative care doctor is actually my spin teacher's husband. So
Oh
I
my
kind
gosh.
of like tangentially know him. So I probably would have like been like, hey Darcy, like what's
Right.
do you think you could help me at all? But I was lucky enough to be referred in. I anecdotally have not heard the same from other stage 4 breast cancer patients. So I think I'm very lucky to have a very thorough oncologist.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. And I'll definitely be looking into that just in general because I do like I'm like wondering what are the long-term side effects of just so much chemo and all that stuff. So,
They can
just
really help with that. I think it's
cool.
huge. And palliative care is so misunderstood. Like I feel like so many people think it's like an alternative to hospice, but it's the opposite. It's I mean, they can help when you're on hospice as well, but it's for helping you be comfortable while you're still alive and like helping you live your life. And like we've even sat down like it's I would say like the intersection of like therapy and medicine almost for me because we'll sit down and talk about like priorities and then okay based on these priorities this is what treatment will look like and like helping, you know, side effect management and even helping me with things like my advanced directive and like how to talk to the person who's going to be like medical power of attorney for me. Like he'll
Mhm.
help me talk to that and like if you know I think someone's going to be hurt that I don't include them in that, then he's like helped me talk through that with them. And he's been willing, like I haven't done it yet, but he's willing to like have family come in to like kind of all of us talk about my situation and things like that. So
Wow,
yeah,
that's great.
huge lifesaver. Highly recommend to anyone if they're able to get it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, definitely. Thanks for sharing that.
Of course.
And in your time of being diagnosed and living now, do you find that you can still be positive?
I think so. I mean, I like to consider myself realistic rather than positive, but I think like realism helps me not to be pessimistic, right? Because when I was looking at it just as, okay, it was like a terminal illness, like my life's over, that was such a bummer. But because I can now kind of take a step back and be like, okay, I've got likely 2 years, maybe longer on Kisqali. I'm going to maximize that time. Like that's kind of my way of trying to stay positive is like look at the facts, understand the facts and then try and like work something in that works for me with kind of like the science based. I'm very like science based in all of my approach to treatment and whatnot.
Oh, that's great. I agree. And realism and positivity are not the same thing, but I think that they lean on each other,
Yes, I
you know,
totally agree.
because it's hard to have rosy glasses on all the time, especially when we're in these situations where everyone says just like keep a positive attitude and you'll be better. When like that continues to not happen, it's really frustrating and it's can be really damaging for mental health at that point.
I totally agree. And I think part of positivity is letting yourself feel your feelings when you have them. Like, I don't think anyone's positive at all the time. And I think if you let yourself, like, instead of just being like, no, I shouldn't feel this way, push away, like, you're not learning like, you're not going to progress past that point versus if you have that feeling, okay, why do I have that feeling? Let me process this. Let me figure out what's going on with me, you
Mm,
know? So I think it's super important.
thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And so do you have any like foundations or anything that you subscribe to?
Yeah, so Be Present, I highly recommend. I am a volunteer content creator there. the mission of Be Present is to make sure that all AYAs, adolescent young adults, feel supported through cancer. And so they put out a lot of information for like our friends and things like that, people our age. And so I think they're wonderful. Wildfire is incredible. If you are looking to donate to metastatic research, I highly recommend Metaviver. It's the only nonprofit that gives 100% of donations to metastatic research, and they're doing wonderful things. And the last one I'll recommend for any breast cancer patients is check out Breast Cancer Portrait Project. Missy Peters, my friend, runs this nonprofit. She is a photographer, and I actually was able to just shoot with her a couple of weeks ago, but she photographs women who were diagnosed with breast cancer under 40 and tells their story. And she's now starting to use it in advocacy materials and hosting events to teach young women how to like do, feel their breasts and what's normal, what's not, and how to kind of take control of your breast health. And she's a fantastic person and doing really good work. So highly recommend her as well.
That's amazing. And I took a look at her work and it's so beautiful. Very,
like
very
so
intimate.
evocative of that. You can feel the emotion through the camera. She's incredible.
Oh, yay. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thanks so much for jumping on the call and talking to us about your life and stage 4 and everything.
Of course. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
And that is a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much to Chiara for jumping on. This was such a great conversation. I loved her spirit, and I loved that she is living with metastatic breast cancer, but also living her life and going out and just traveling and experiencing things. Like, she has a bucket list. How cool is that? Like, I don't have a bucket list, but I think that it's rad that she was able to check some things off just in like the 1 year that she's had cancer. And mind you, like, it's COVID times, and she's just like, I'm just gonna do what I want to do. Like, it's so dope. I love that. I love that she was able to jump on this call. Please follow her if you are not already. Make sure to follow Be Present as well. I'll have links all for these in the description below. Also, since recording this episode, Jane Marczewski has actually passed away. She was known as Nightbird, and she was the singer that was on America's Got Talent. She was 31 years old, and she was an amazing singer and a very big inspiration for a lot of cancer patients, including Chiara and I. And it was really sad to hear that. And if you want to support her memorial fund, I will have links in the description below as well. She was a beautiful person, inside and out, as we all are as chronically ill and disabled people. We have a little bit of a special ting to us. And her quote, in which she says, "I'm so much more than the bad things that have happened to me," will always ring true for us, because we keep going every single day. And even though these days are not fun, sometimes they can be. And Chiara is also living proof of that, because she goes out and experiences life and chooses that instead of choosing to accept the reality that cancer places on us sometimes. So I will have that link in the description below. And please support if you can, if you have the means. If not, just sharing or supporting in your own way. I think that all of these things are definitely ways in which you can help her family to share about her story and inspire others to do the same. So thank you so much for listening in, and stay sick, friends.